This is your fault! Ah!
The fire erupted, fast flames tearing through the hood of Karen's Tesla as thick smoke filled the air. She stumbled forward, eyes wide in panic, her voice breaking as she screamed, "Oh my God, my car!" She turned sharply toward me, pointing. With fury, "You did this! This is your fault!" Her voice cracked again, almost desperate. "You wanted this to happen." But I didn't move, I just stood there, arms crossed, calm. Watching her world burn. It was just after 2 in the morning when the shrill, piercing wail of my energy monitor jolted me awake. Not the soft chime of a phone, not the patterned beeps of a smoke alarm. This was different. The wail was the sound of my system screaming at me that something was terribly wrong. My wife stirred beside me, half asleep, but I was already on. My feet, cold floorboards under my toes, adrenaline rising, I crossed the room and tapped the glowing tablet on my dresser. The screen bathed my face in red light, a graph spiking so sharply it looked like a skyscraper, 48 amps, full draw. My car wasn't even plugged in tonight. It sat peacefully in the garage, fully charged, which meant someone else had just jacked into my solar grid. I pulled back the curtain just enough to see the driveway. The motion light was blazing, and under its sterile glow sat a white Tesla Model 3, plugged into my charger, leaching power like it belonged there. And standing right next to it, silk robe fluttering in the early morning breeze, was Karen Dunth, self-proclaimed queen of our homeowners association. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't even embarrassed. She just stood there, arms crossed, scrolling through her phone like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered, anger flaring cold and sharp. It wasn't about the money. A few dollars worth of electricity wouldn't have kept me up at night. It was the principle. It was the arrogance. She had crossed onto my property, cut into my independence, and treated my hard work like her personal charging station. That was the moment I decided. If Karen wanted power, I was going to give her more than she could handle. Didn't rush outside right away. That's what she wanted: confrontation, drama, an audience. Karen thrived on it. She'd been running our HOA like her own personal kingdom for years, strutting around in that red blazer during meetings, handing out fines like candy on Halloween. Mailbox not the right shade of beige? Fine. Grass 2 inches taller than regulation? Fine. Solar panels visible from the street? Big fine. That last one had been aimed at me. See, I'm not just some guy who slapped a few panels on his roof. I'm an electrical systems engineer. I designed my solar grid from the ground up, roof panels feeding into a high-capacity battery bank, a custom inverter, and my own monitoring system. It wasn't just about lowering bills. It was about independence. No rolling blackouts, no utility hikes, no one telling me when or how I could use my own power. It was clean, efficient, and completely mine. Karen hated that. At the last HOA meeting, she'd made a whole speech about visual disharmony and how my battery housing by the fence was inviting theft. I'd shown her the permits, the city approvals, everything in black and white. She didn't care. She just wanted control. When she realized she couldn't find me out of my own system, she found a new angle, using it for herself the first time. I caught her plugging in. I thought maybe it was some mistake. She claimed her home charger was broken and that it was just. For one night, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. But then it happened again and again. Each time with a new excuse, each time delivered with that smug little smile. That night, standing by the window in the dark, I realized she wasn't going to stop. Karen wasn't borrowing, she was stealing. And worse, she felt entitled to it. She thought my hard work, my system, and my independence all belonged to her because she wore a title and waved a clipboard. That was the last straw. If Karen wanted to make my charger her own, I was going to make sure she remembered the night she crossed the wrong engineer. The next morning, I walked out to find my charging cable still dangling from her Tesla, like some umbilical cord she thought connected her to my system. She waved at me casually, as if she hadn't trespassed on my property at 2 in the morning. "Your charger wasn't being used overnight," she said, voice dripping with entitlement. "I figured it's just community power, right? We all live." Here, community power, the words nearly made me laugh. My system wasn't communicating anything. Every panel, every wire, every circuit had been paid for, installed, and fine-tuned by me. This wasn't some public utility. It was my personal lifeline. I told her straight. Don't plug into my grid again, Karen, ever. She rolled her eyes, gave me that practiced HOA smirk, and drove off like I was the unreasonable one for a week. Things were quiet. Then, at exactly 2:14 a.m. on a Thursday, the alarm screamed again. Same spike, same pattern. I pulled back the curtain, and there she was, same Tesla, same silk robe, same smug attitude. She hadn't listened. She never did. By the third time, I stopped getting angry. I started getting focused. Anger is messy, focus is sharp. I began reprogramming my inverter, rerouting safety protocols, and building what I thought of as a digital mousetrap. It was simple, really. The moment her Tesla pulled maximum draw, the system would feed a jolt back into the line harmless to my equipment. But her car wouldn't appreciate I didn't tell Sarah at first. She worries, and honestly I wanted the element of surprise. Night after night I waited, watching the driveway, until finally she came again. The numbers lit up on my screen. The amperage climbed. My system armed itself. I sat there in the dark, heart pounding, not with fear, but with a kind of cold anticipation. All right, Karen, I whispered. Let's see how much power you really want. The moment her Tesla hit full draw, the trap snapped shut on my monitor. The line spiked like a rocket. A surge fed back through the circuit, controlled, precise, just as I'd designed it. Out in the driveway, the quiet hum of charging twisted into a high-pitched whine. Sparks snapped from the cable like angry fireflies through the window. I saw her jump back, phone clattering onto the pavement. The Tesla's headlights flashed, alarms blared, and the glossy white paint reflected the violent flicker of electricity. For a few heartbeats, the night lit up like a storm. Karen screamed, stumbling in her slippers, scrambling away from the car as if it had suddenly turned on her. The smell of ozone drifted up even through the glass-sharp, electric, undeniable. I didn't move. I just watched, calm and steady, the way only an engineer who knows exactly what's happening can be. My system wasn't in danger. My house was safe. This was targeted and surgical, and it was working. She fumbled to yank the charger free, but my locking mechanism held fast. For the first time in years, Karen dumped woman who fined neighbors for flower pots and threatened to evict families. Over mailbox paint looked powerless on when the final pop echoed across the driveway. The Tesla went dark, dead. A $50,000 paperweight tethered to my wall. She turned, face pale in the harsh glare of the motion light, and for the first time ever, I saw something I'd never expected from her. Fear. I opened the front door just enough for my voice to carry. I told you not to plug into my system again. No shouting. No anger, just cold, steady fact. She didn't answer. She just yanked at the cable one last time, then bolted into the night, silk robe flapping behind her like a defeated banner. And standing there in the doorway, I realized sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's just electric. Dive 5 by sunrise. The whole neighborhood knew something had happened. Word travels fast when the HOA president's pride and joy gets towed. Away on a flatbed, silent and lifeless, Karen tried spinning it, of course. At the emergency HOA meeting that weekend, she stood there in a borrowed blazer, hair pulled back too tight, insisting my unregulated solar equipment had nearly burnt her alive. She demanded the board fine me, shut down my system, and even remove it entirely for community safety. But then I played the footage. See, my monitoring system doesn't just log electrons, it logs video. Every night, motion sensors captured the driveway. Every time she plugged in, I had it. Date, time, amperage draw. Her walking across my property without permission. Her ignoring my warnings. And finally, her Tesla sparking under the strain of the trap. The room went quiet. Dead quiet. Neighbors shifted uncomfortably, some smirking, others shaking their heads. Finally, one of the board members cleared his throat and said, "Karen, it looks like you were trespassing." That was the beginning of the end for her reign. Within a month, a petition circulated. By the next vote, she was out-removed as HOA president by the very people she'd lorded over. and for the first time in years the neighborhood felt lighter, freer. As for me, I patched the system, reinforced the protocols, and mounted the melted remains of that charging cable in my workshop. A reminder that sometimes the cleanest victory isn't about shouting the loudest or hitting the hardest. It's about precision, patience, and giving people exactly what they ask for, just a little more than they can handle. And every time I walk past that scorched piece of wire, I can't help but smile. Because in the end, Karen wanted power. And I gave it to her. Question. And every time I walk past that scorched piece of wire, I can't help but smile. Because in the end, Karen wanted power. And I gave it to her. But let me ask you this: if your neighbor kept sneaking onto your property and stealing from you, would you fight back the same way?
This was just one story, but the next one will be even more dramatic. Are you ready? Then you need to subscribe to HOA Stories 87 right now. Like this video, share it with your friends, and hit the bell because the next story might sound a little too close to home.